Before asking the panel members to come on stage, I'd like to thank our sponsors for the event, Ozone Ventures. So Ozone Ventures, obviously a bicycle store over here. They've got a lot of different brands under their name. So they're the distributors for some of the major performance brands. They've got Villiers, they've got Schwalbe, Eskes, and then Headbeats, as well as Celis and Marco saddles. So these are just a few, and they've got a couple of others as well. So they're sponsoring the event. They are able, and because of them, we are able to organize a wonderful event like this over here. And obviously, we've got the venue partner as well, and Moreshwar Sabhagurha. They've let us use this venue for our session. So thanks a lot, Moreshwar Sabhagurha as well. And let's get the panel members on the stage now. We are waiting for them for a long time, and that's not because of them, that's because of me. But let's get Jim on board. So Jim Henderson is here with us. So Jim is the 10-time podium finisher and 5-time winner of the British Hill Climb Championships. So that's the National Hill Climb Championships. And he was also an elite category road racer for a bike team called Raleigh Racing Team. Yeah, so that's back in Europe, right? Then we've got our second panel member which is Sudarshan Devardekar. So I think Sudarshan is a 3-time champion for Maharashtra State. He is 8-time top 10 finisher at the nationals, and he's obviously been a podium finisher at a lot of nationals and state cycling races over here. And sorry. Of course, yes. Of course. And then we've got Varadayini Gorhe as well. So Varadayini is a sports psychologist. She's the founder at Mindfirst Sports Performance, and she's the co-founder at INSPA. And finally, I'd asked to come on stage Dr. Rituja Udpikar. So she's a sports physiotherapist, she's a Pilates instructor, and Triathlete as well. So Rituja is going to be our moderator for the day, and I'll ask Rituja to take over from here.
Hi, good evening everybody. Hello. Basically the way on here. Okay. Better? Okay. Hi, good evening everybody. Good evening panelists. The way we are going to work with the discussion is it's a couple of blocks. We have had some subheadings and we are going to talk accordingly. Okay, so first we are going to talk a little about the general cycling scene around Pune, around India in general. I would like to start with Jim. I want to hear a little about your experiences about racing in Europe as well as in India. And we would also like to know some comparisons that you can draw between both of your experiences.
Yeah, thank you. So, I suppose the one thing that I've been really struck by when racing here is there's a really friendly atmosphere in the races, and I'm thinking particularly of some of the kind of time trial races that I've done here. There's an interesting contrast with the UK, where I'm from. People are very, very serious and focused, and they've got all of their day planned out and their kit, their equipment, and they're in their little zone and their little bubble. And that kind of extends to after the race as well. And people will want to see their own time, but then they'll go away again. But in the events here, then everybody stays for hours afterwards, and it's a great social experience. So that's one thing that's really nice. Something else that I guess I was pleasantly surprised at is the standard of racing that I've been in is really pretty good. In terms of the rider discipline, and I would call it etiquette. Knowing how to ride when you're close to other people. I'm thinking there about road race kind of situations. I think my my preconception before coming to India was there's dogs and cows in the road and there's landslides or big holes in the road, and that racing might be a really dangerous thing. But I found that racing in a bunch here it's the same everywhere else. You know, the people want to be able to be at a standard where you can race. I think that it means so much time spent on the cycle that the people are generally pretty good. They know how to ride close to other people. And that means that you can get on and enjoy and have competitive racing. So that's been a real nice thing to find here.
How does it feel to be able to race 12 months of the year versus just 3 months back in UK?
Oh no, so in the UK, there were seasons when I did race all year round, but they would have different things. So the winter would get filled with cyclocross. So you'd have like short events that you could do them on private land, and even if it was snowing or icy, you could still do the race in safety. And I guess the difference here, and I do really appreciate it, is that apart from monsoon, there's probably 10 months when if you want to do mountain training, you can just go out from here in Pune, and I think I annoy people in the UK when I send pictures of me climbing up some sunny climb when it's in December or January and they've got ice on the roads. So that is a real nice thing in this area.
Okay, Sudarshan, we would like to hear about your experiences of racing at the states, at the nationals, and त्याच्याबरोबर आम्हाला इतर ॲथलीट्स बरोबर तुझी जी कॉम्पिटिशन होते आता यू रेस्ड अगेन्स्ट सम रिअली बिग नेम्स नवीन जॉन आहे देयर इज श्रीनाथ ह्या पण एक्सपिरियन्सेस बद्दल आम्हाला ऐकायला आवडेल आणि टॉक टू अस अबाउट द रेसेस दॅट यू डन अप टिल नाउ.
To start with, so maybe I can compare. Like I raced in Belgium as well. So the main thing that I can point the difference between the level in India and Belgium is that in the Belgium everyone is so strong. Like everyone is very fast. But in India, it's like you will find. So maybe if the budget is like 70, there will be like 10 riders who are strong, and they will be mostly the contention, and people will look at them mostly. So the level difference is there, and which I think is slowly bridging. And with what I'm saying is there are always the new generation that is coming up. That's really strong. They know how to train, and they are really putting the effort. So the amount of effort that needs to be. So previously, if we can just compare the amount of hours that a pro rider would do, and that in general we in India are doing, there's what was different. So mileage, we do very less mileage compared to them, but now that is increasing, and with that I see. I think we will progress much better.
तुझ्या बेल्जियमच्या रेसेस बद्दल सांगशील आम्हाला तू कधी गेला होतास आणि काय नक्की रेसचं स्वरूप होतं?
Yeah. So the Belgium race. So I was in Belgium last year in around May June. So I did the Kermes races. So in Belgium, so there are around. So you have a circuit around the town. And you just race. So there are around, so you do laps over there, and in those races, so I was racing mostly the LBU races. So that are like 70 kilometers, but like everybody is going so fast on the first lap. And the first major thing that I found difficult was just sticking to the wheel, because at the corners they are going very fast, and it's very difficult. You have to adjust to that, and so that is the first learning that you have to do. So yeah, and everybody is very fast.
तू 3 वेळा
Can I just come let me add something to that, because I've done a little bit of racing in Belgium as well, and I totally agree with what Sudarshan says there. So my experience of going was with an English team, and so we went across to Belgium. So everybody in Belgium thinks, well, if these people have come from a foreign country, they must be really good. So they're all looking at us, but then they turn up, and the riders tend to be the young riders in the development teams of the full professional teams that you see in the Tour de France and the Giro and all of these. So these guys are the ones who, some of them are like 1 year away from a pro contract and being the people you see on the TV. And so the competition amongst them is fierce, just really, you know, these are the people who are just knocking on the door of a big contract. So it's really tough over there.
Yeah. So maybe just for reference, I'll give. So an average pro, like not pro, but someone who wants to be a pro is at least doing 25,000 kilometers per year. And if you look at pro riders, they are doing around 35,000, and even like Chris Froome did around 45,000 in a year. So if you want to reach that, we need to also increase the mileage.
So Sudarshan, you've been 3 times state champion. त्याच्याबद्दल त्या races बद्दल आम्हाला काहीतरी सांग ना.
Yeah, so I have been state champion in time trial races. So the year, if you want to be selected in the state team, you have to be good at time trials. So that's the criteria, and which inspire you to do better at time trials. So time trials is just like putting the best that you have and laying it all for that 40 kilometers. It's usually 40 kilometers course, and you have to do your best. And time trials are basically not very interesting compared to road races, because it's just you alone and pushing the roads. That's it.
Alright. Coming to you, Varadayini. Varadayini is a sports psychologist. आम्ही आता recent आता मगाशी बसून आम्ही बोलत होतो. She was in UK when London Olympics होते थे 2012. So she has worked very closely with a lot of Olympic athletes at that time. Can you tell us about your experiences from back in 2012? आणि तू आता काय practice करते? What all endurance athletes you work with?
Okay, thanks, Rituja. I've been practicing for the last almost 12 वर्ष झाले, and my whole practice has been in India. Working back then in 2013, comparing to to what I'm doing right now, I think there's been a lot of awareness that has grown from a sports science perspective. So I would say the experience has been very enriching and very it's like growing. So that's one thing what I feel has changed over the last 10 years in India in terms of awareness development of sports psychology, the requirement of sports psychologists for multiple sports. Having said that, there are particular sports that are very proactive in terms of approaching a sports psychologist. I think up there being cricket, because I think cricket has that exposure. But again, for the last 5-6 years, I have also worked with endurance athletes, right from triathletes to even marathon runners or people who even have done ultra marathons as well. So recently, last year, I was working with a few triathletes who represent Maharashtra. And that was also a very interesting experience, because again, the awareness of sports science has increased, like I said, but the athlete themselves has started understanding a lot about their mind, which helps us, engage with them in a better way. So that's been some experience that I would like to maybe share ahead in our discussion as well. Yeah.
With respect to those triathletes that you have worked with, because the discussion is more cycling oriented, when they came to you, out of the 3 sports, cycling बाबत ते काय advice मागतात तुझ्याकडे, or how do you guide them?
Okay. Collectively, I think mindset एक गोष्ट आहे जो I think it's more about, of course, the endurance of the mind as well. Cycling बाबत I think it's again I won't say specifically, but overall एक endurance mindset जो लागतो, which is I would say coupled with motivation, like sustaining practice, like motivation during practice as well, especially when it's off season. And then applying it again onto the season. It is something what I guess everyone goes through. So the motivating factor is one, and that I guess links a lot to your overall self-belief, which is like, okay, how good I am, and it definitely has its roots in how you motivate yourself on a daily basis, which I feel is very tough in any endurance sports. Yeah, so that's something what I think I've worked with most of them on, which is just sustaining that kind of motivation throughout the off season and then carrying it forward towards the season as well.
Now that we are speaking about motivation, I would like to still talk to you. Amala, tell us a few technical aspects about motivation. How would you define motivation? And I believe there are concepts like intrinsic factors, extrinsic factors, which influence motivation. So can you talk a little about that? And how can recreational cyclists apply that to themselves?
Alright. I'll come up with an example. Everyone has seen Baag Milka Baag? Okay, so what's the first thing that in the movie that they say, why did he start running? Yeah, doodh, right? The milk is the reason why he started running. So just to give that as an example, it's an external factor of motivation, right? He started running because of an external factor. Now we could list down a lot of external factors. Before I move on to that technical definition of motivation, I won't go a lot into theory, but it is what pushes you to give the effort into anything. Okay, it's what drives you. Okay, what's the driving factor? I think many of you guys must be asking yourself, right? What is driving me to cycle? Like, okay, or a simple question what we ask athletes is like, what drives you to wake up at 5 and just go out running even if it's raining? Alright, what is the factor that helps you go and play the sport? Alright, if you see any of the Olympics, like say Neeraj Chopra for example, when you ask him what drives him to train so hard just for that one throw, okay, he says it is that passion to play for the country, okay, and every one of us will have an answer. Now the factor could be an internal factor or it could be an external factor, right? Over the period that you train, most of the external factors usually go internal. Okay, there are very few external factors. Of course, medals, accolades, all these factors are there. But there is something that pushes you from inside. And that should be heavier than an external factor, in my opinion. And of course, research also backs that intrinsic motivation helps you sustain through even the rough times. Right? So even through an injury, there is that internal factor that pushes you to get out of the injury and go into training. So intrinsic motivation is something which should be more powerful, definitely. But what helps that to be more powerful? There is a particular theory that's applied in sports psychology called as achievement theory. There are two factors which come under this. One is what drives you, right? That's a question that I asked. Is it an ego-oriented profile, which is, do you compare yourself to others and then you get motivated, okay, I want to go better than this person. Okay, it's an ego-oriented motivation. And the other form of motivation is a mastery form of motivation. Okay, mastery matlab, me versus myself, as simple as that. So am I better than myself? Okay, this form of motivation is definitely seen to be a better form of motivation, but here's a research conflict. Research says elite athletes actually, get both the motivations in picture. That's when they go ahead. That's when, if they want to get better in the ladder, definitely there has to be a comparison. You can't just, stick to you versus yourself. So a balance of both is required to actually sustain in any kind of sport. And I think endurance sport, like I said, needs that kind of motivation. So fueling both these aspects is equally important.
Jim, what keeps you motivated?
That was quite an interesting perspective. I think for me it is very much internal. And so the event where I was national champion was cycling hill climb, which is a time trial event. So you race on your own. And the course is, the length is not standard, it just depends on the hill. Typically the events are quite short, just because the hills are short in the UK. So the national championships that I've won ranged in length from 2 minutes to 6 minutes. And so it's more like doing a pursuit on the track. I think it's the closest kind of comparison. But you race on your own. And so while you might have rivals and you might be interested and you'd be looking at them and you'd be thinking, what are they doing? Do they look in good form? Ultimately, when you do the event, you're on your own and you can't control what the other people are doing. And if somebody goes and gets a world record time, well, I've got no control over what those other people do. All I can do is just do the best that I can. If it's a course I've done before, I would look at trying to beat my previous times. If it's something I'd assessed it in advance, I'd be thinking, well, what's my strategy for doing the best performance that I can. But it'd always be, that was just driven by myself, my own desire to get my best performance out.
And how did you come to this place when you have that desire? Do you have an answer to that?
By way of answer, so you will see in cycling in the UK, there's a very strong like grassroots network of kids racing, and you would see some parents really pushing their kids. And the parents who are there for the first time, they think they're doing the right thing for their kids, and if only I can get them this equipment, that equipment. And we would watch, when my kids were of a similar age, there'd be these boys of like 14 years old who were on like 80mm deep carbon rims, and the noise when they changed their gears, you could just hear the carbon like click, 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 click. And the people who had raced, we'd all talk to each other and just say, look at that guy over there, that child is not going to stick at this, because the motivation at the moment is it's making his dad happy. And the child does a good race and sees his father is happy, and it's all good. But to your point about it becoming internal, at some point, then as the child starts to form their own opinions of a bigger world beyond just what mum and dad think, and they start to get interested in girls, is typically the thing that happens with young boy cyclists. But that I think is the point where the people who have some internal reason to force them to get out when the weather's bad or when their legs are hurting, they're the ones who continue, and the other ones who, if it's not coming from within, then eventually maybe they won't lose altogether, but they'll find a level. And I think the people who succeed are the ones who are driven internally.
I'm going to ask a similar question to you, Sudarshan. How do you handle the ups and downs that come with racing, and not just racing, training? Say, during your training, off-season summer, which is a training summer, you just do not feel motivated. What strategies do you reach out to get that mojo back?
I think for me, it is fun. So for me, racing is fun. I find racing very interesting, and I'm a big fan of pro cycling. So that's one very driving point for me. So like, I want to be like Pogacar, I want to be like Gorhe, I want to win races like that. So to have that innate feeling of like being in the peloton, going fast, and being able to do that, being able to race, being able to attack, and being able to celebrate the wins. So I think that kind of drives me. And so on the points that Varadayini pointed out, that there are two factors. So one that pushes you to the limit. So in my case, I can say that yeah, when I started racing, like I didn't imagine that I could be in a state team. But then like for 5-6 years I've always been in the state cycling team, and then you want to push more, then you maybe want to go to Asians with the international team. So that's the goal, and also on the other side, for the ego side, I don't consider it necessarily negative. I consider my opponents or the closest rivals to be my best teammates, because they actually push me. Like I push them to do better. Like for example, when I started, it was like, so Mahesh and Rishabh have been they have been training. So I wanted to do better. I wanted to do time trials like Rishabh did. So that made me push to do better time trials. And right now, if you see, so Chinmay and Surya, so they are inspiring me. So I have been inspiring them. They in turn inspire me. So like Surya is going to Asians. So because he's going to Asians, I can think that I can also now go to nations. Because Chinmay has won medal at nationals, I can also think that I can win a medal at nationals. So this like so it's like combination of it, like you are very close with your peers, and we push each other to do better. Like you, and it's a feeling that you want them to do better because you also want to do better. So you push each other that way.
So actually you answered my next pointer, which was importance of competition. That's where we are headed next. So to that point, does the competition get to you negatively at times? Either of you. The competition, it becomes a little unhealthy for you at times. Does that happen to you, Jim? Where it's affecting you a little bit, negatively a little bit. Does that happen to you?
So, thinking about that. So, yes, in time trialing, but no in road racing. And I can only guess that's just because when you're doing a road race, then you're in the company of so many other people that things are outside your control, and there'll be all sort of little micro kind of conversations you're having with yourself that will be, okay, I've just got to get to this point, I've got to not be dropped in the next 30 seconds because it's hard, and you just break it into little chunks. Whereas, for a time trial where you know you'll be on your own, and especially in a longer time trial, like a 40k kind of thing, then I think I found that sometimes that is quite difficult to, maybe if you've not been going so well recently, you've had a few weeks where the results aren't what you wanted, then that's probably the sort of situation where if I'm not careful, then I'll get into negative thoughts. Yeah.
Can you tell us about a race which you lost, and what did you take away from that race on that particular day?
Yeah.
Can you describe the entire event to us?
So, probably the UK National Hill Climb in 2003, I won that, and that one I think was my best win. Then the next year the course didn't suit me at all, and I came fourth. But then the year after that, it was back onto the course where I'd won my second title. So I'd already won there, and this was a race they did every year, and I'd won it 6 times, I think, in the past. So I knew the course, I knew everything about it. When I went training in this town, people would walk along the road and they'd say, "Hi, Jim," and I was known in this area. National Championship was on there, and I think that I decided that I should race in a higher gear than I'd done previously, because this was the National Championship, and therefore I could expect I'd go faster than in a normal race. That was one thing. Then on the day, the weather was bad and it was raining, and so I found that when I was racing, straight away, a thought just came in my head from nowhere that says, to me, nobody else said this, you've never won the National Hill Climb when it's been raining. And that's what a horrible negative thought that just came from inside. And then doing the race itself on this slightly larger gear, this course, it had a section at about 20% gradient. It was really tough. And that gear was just, it was wrong. And I could feel it at the time. Everyone knows the feeling when you're on a hill, it's too steep. And at that point, it's a battle just to turn the pedals. You're thinking that's all you can do. And so I'm there as the favourite at the national championship. I just think, I've just got to get through this. So I did do. My time was, it was slower than I'd done previously when winning this event. And then at the finish, it turned out somebody else had beaten me by 0.3 seconds and in a 2.5 minute race. And so this young kid, he was only 18, and I was 32, I think, at the time, he just about beat me. So that one, I was really disappointed, and I had these thoughts about things that, you could have done this better. But I think that, and I can't explain, it's just part of my character, I think. I just had to shrug it off and say, well, it's happened, it's gone. Because I had people coming up to me saying, if I'd won this one, I'd have won 6, and that would have equalled the most that anybody had ever won it. But I feel you have a choice in that situation. You can either internalise that, you can keep thinking about it, you can keep let it eat you up, or you just have to put that away and put it down to experience. And there'll be another day, another ride, and there wasn't another national championship where it's so well, but that's the way that I deal with it.
Nalini, as a sports psychologist, what do you think about the way we dealt with this loss?
Yeah, I think just reminds me of another theory I simplified. So you can take any situation that you are faced as an athlete either as a threat or as a challenge. Okay? In any situation, you have 2 options. You take it as a threat. So had he taken it as a threat, possibly you would be ruminating it over and over again. Like, I've been defeated by an 18-year-old and he's a threat to me, possibly in the next time. It just keeps on happening again and again. But if you take it as a challenge, you maybe just learn out of it and not do certain things what you would have done at that point, and learn out of it. It's a challenge for situation. So think of any of your races as well, or like any of your future races in that way, that you have 2 options when you are facing a tough situation. You take it as a threat or you take it as a challenge. So yeah, that's how I guess any of the tough races could be analyzed as.
In contrast to Sudarshan, we would like to hear about a race that you won, but you learned a lot in the process. खूप शिकलास त्या एका विननी. Can you tell us some race like that?
I think this was the Ashok Khare race. So it is the climbing race in Borgad. So it was honoring Ashok Khare, who had won Mumbai Pune race. So that race, it was like I was new into racing at that time, and so I really didn't know where I was. So at the base of the climb, I could see everybody attacking, everybody going ahead, but I had a plan to just keep to my power and just pushing. But eventually, what I saw was as I went, I was catching everyone, and I was fortunate with that the guy who was at the first, he got a puncture, but I won that race. So it kind of like give me a sense of my level and that how I can push more to do better. So that waving kind of helped me to like race more.
Again, back to Nalini, we're going to take a review of everything that you have said from her. What are your reflections about what he just said, and how would you help our athletes, recreational athletes, to use competition as a factor to get better? Can you tell me?
Sure. So I think one plus point is like after every win, it's not necessary. So, when I work with athletes, a lot of athletes say, after winning, why should I analyze? It's already done, right? So So you need to, it's a good thing to always step back and think about what you could have done better in any which way, because there's always scope for improvement. Even Roger Federer had that thing that, okay, I after every match, I analyze what I've won in a better way. I could have done certain things better. So it's always good to sit back and analyze a loss and a win. So that's what even he said, that it's good to think of what you could have done better even at such times. So yes, that's definitely a very important thing even in our sessions, that when we conduct sessions after a tournament, even if you won the tournament, list down things what you could have done better. So yeah, definitely important for any level of competition or athletes.
Are there any coaches in the audience? तुम्ही संतोष सरांना बोलायला सांगणार आहे. ओके, संतोष सर, तुम्हालाच एक प्रश्न विचारते मी. तुम्ही ज्या त्या ॲथलीट्सला ट्रेन करता, त्यांना तुम्ही कॉम्पिटिशनला, तुम्ही मला पण बरेचदा सांगितलं रेस कर, की व्हाय डू यू टेल दॅट टू पीपल, आणि तुमचा काय पर्स्पेक्टिव्ह आहे ह्याच्याबद्दल, की का कॉम्पिटिशन करावी लोकांनी, आणि कसं काय वाटतं तुम्हाला त्याच्यामुळे हेल्प होईल लोकांना?
Explain the question. I try to compete because unless until you compete, you will not get to know your own performance. You train daily. Many of the coaches in Pune, they say don't participate. I tell participate in each and every event whichever possible. The reason behind it is unless until you don't participate, you will not get to know your performance. That is the main thing which I always say.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for being a sport and answering this question. Thank you.
अजून कोणाचे काय व्ह्यूज आहेत का या पर्टिक्युलर क्वेश्चनवर? सूरज?
Okay, so basically the question is, why do you think competition is necessary for performance? And we are trying to ask this question to different people. They are athletes, that's why we ask them. So trains people, that's why we ask them. So from a different perspective, does anyone have any other reflection about it? Yes?
कॉम्पिटिशनमध्ये दोन गोष्टी करतात. एक म्हणजे आपण स्वतः किती तयार आहे ही एक गोष्ट आपल्याला कळते, आणि दुसरी गोष्ट कळते की बाकीचे किती लोक तयार आहेत.
एकदा आम्ही ज्या वेळेला हे सगळ्याचं डिस्कशन करत होतो त्यावेळेला ऑपोनंट चेक नावाची एक नवीन टर्म मी फर्स्ट टाइमच ऐकली. सो व्हॉट डू यू थिंक इज ऑपोनंट चेक आणि व्हाय इज दॅट नेसेसरी टू कॉम्पिटिशन इन जनरल? हाऊ डज इट हेल्प यू? व्हॉट डू यू थिंक अबाउट इट? What he just said, like, so basically what sir said right now is, when you compete, you get to know about your performance and you also get to know about others' performance. That's why you should compete. That's what he said. So this whole concept called opponent check. Are you aware about this?
Maybe I can go. So opponent check is like one of the most important factor in a road race and also in the time race, but eminently more important in road race because in road race it's not the strongest who wins. You have to be it's a tactical game. You have to so you have to know the course, you have to know the where others can attack, where you can attack, where you can make the difference, and you need to know who are the strongest guys, whom you can follow. In a road race it's that you don't have to be the strongest to win. So you have to be tactically better. You need to manage your energy better to do that. So for example, like Naveen John has been winning time trials like 7, in national time drugs titles, but he has won the road race only once. Not that he's strong, but everybody is marking his way. So it becomes much more difficult for him to win. But in that, you have to find how you could win. So in that case, so knowing opponents and knowing the course, that becomes much more important. And especially with road cycling, there are different type of riders. So for a course, you know someone who is a very good sprinter. Now you don't want to. These are very basic things. You don't want to go to line with that sprinter. So you may want to drop him on incline, and you want to strategize accordingly. But if you think someone who is at your level in terms of sprinting, you can work with him, and you can go to finish and try to win.
We're going to move on to the next section, which is about developing a support network. So I'm going to talk to the athletes first about this. So let's talk about support system in two aspects. One is your personal support network, maybe your friends, your peers, your teammates, and other is any professional services that you seek. Do you seek them? What all do you seek? Is it nutrition? Is it psychology? Is it strength and conditioning? Can you talk a little bit about that?
So, I can't talk at all about professionals. I struggle to think of any professional help I've ever had. Everything I've just done has just been on advice and reading or listening and picking up things from other people, which looking back, that's probably something I could perhaps have done a bit better with that. But in terms of a support network, yeah, I did used to find that really, really important. I remember that I would very actively at hill climb races. I would just certain sorts of people I would just avoid them because I would know that they would say negative things, unhelpful things. People who would talk about the weather, for example. You don't want to be near those people. And I had the help of somebody in my cycling club who was ex-policeman, and when he retired, he decided he didn't just want to stay at home. He retrained as a sports masseur, and so I would go to his house once or twice in a week, and I'd get a massage from him. But he would come along to races with me, and he would just help me. He would ride in the car, just be a companion to drive there, and then when I would put my bike on a turbo to warm up, so I'd warm up on one bike and I'd compete on a different bike. So he would look after the racing bike when I was on the turbo, but he'd also just he was just very good at sometimes he would protect me, and if he could see someone coming up and he'd like look at me and just sort of do you want to see this guy? So he'd usher this person away. But other times he would just he wouldn't say very much, and I think that was an important thing. I didn't want a talkative person, but the few words that he did say would always be positive things, and he would just. I'd be there warming up, and he would say things like, oh, "You're looking, you're looking fit today, or strong today," or just little things like that. And I had a few other people at different times who I would. Sometimes they'd come to races. Other times they'd just be somebody you could talk to afterwards about races or before them. But again, people who you could reliably know that they would be full of positive talk, and that was really important for me.
What about you, Sudarshan? Have you sought any sort of professional help from any person? Anything like that?
So in terms of professional help, I have a coach. Which helps very much, and especially in cycling, it is I think of course you can do all the things. You can have very long learning path to go through all the things, go through all the motions, and learn how to do things. But in that case, it will take a lot of time for you to find out the things. But having a coach, he'll plan the things better for you. He'll know what needs to be done, how you should be planning your training. And also, when you have a coach, it's like someone is looking at your training. So it's like even if you are like not doing good, like maybe long at work or you are just not feeling it. But since your coach is watching you, you want to do that workout that has been prescribed to you. So that kind of helps very much with training.
Coming to the very main part of this discussion, which is high performance for cyclists. Before we actually talk to our athletes and Varadayini, I would like to ask the crowd, what do you mean by high performance, or rather, what does high performance mean to you? So, sir, please, sir, high performance काय वाटतं तुम्हाला? काय असतं exactly cycling? How would you define that? एका लाईनीत जर का तुम्हाला सांगायचं असलं, what does it mean to you?
हाय परफॉर्मन्स म्हणजे जेव्हा आपली रेस असेल त्या रेससाठी तुम्ही जेव्हा जिंकण्याच्या जिद्दीने टायर उतरू शकाल तो माणूस हाय परफॉर्मन्स असायला पाहिजे. म्हणजे पिरियडायझेशन जे आहे तुमचं, म्हणजे तुमचं जे पीक व्हायला पाहिजे ते इव्हेंटच्या बरोबर त्या वेळेवर व्हायला पाहिजे. सो अकॉर्डिंग टू मी दॅट शुड बी द हाय परफॉर्मन्स.
तुझ्याप्रमाणे हाय परफॉर्मन्स काय असतं?
Doing better at a race or during training. Every time.
Okay, that is high performance. Anybody else?
Doing better as in going at the top level that you can.
Anybody else? Yes.
For me, high performance would be even beating a 5-minute climb after a block of training. That I would like to call that, yeah, I am performing better than I performed 2 years back. So, performing better and better with the correct simulation and training is what I call
High performance.
Basically setting gears.
Okay.
Setting gears.
That's what you would call high performance.
Yeah,
Okay.
beating your own records and giving 100%. Doesn't matter the circumstances.
Maintaining your energy level all the time high. Suppose if you are going 15 kilometers in 5 minutes, so you are like, how can I do it within 5 minutes? Beating your own record.
They are getting affected by the
Yes.
Anything from the ladies? Shreya? Let's talk about performance. Okay. Alright. What does high performance mean to you?
I think there's some really good points being made here about. So when people talk about PRs, so you're measuring you against yourself, and something that I should say about myself and that. Okay, so I've been national champion at climbing hills. I didn't just wake up one morning and say, oh, I know, I will seek out the hill climbing race and dedicate my life to that. I tried many different sorts of cycling, and I was fortunate because I went to university and they had a great cycling club who would just go and do things together in a social way, and most people weren't very particularly fast or fit, and cycling wasn't the main part of their life, but we would just go off and do different things. So I tried mountain biking, cyclocross, track, time trials, team time trials, all many different sorts of things. And it became apparent while doing some of those that some of those things, physiologically, I wasn't built to be a rider on Belgian pavé, where you need a big, powerful, you need to be solid and able to hold your line when it's windy, those kind of things. I'm not that shape. But I found that relative to other people, I seem to do well when the road got hilly. And so that naturally steered me towards races that suited me a bit more. And that was where I was able to then get into that sort of mindset about, oh, well, yeah, I'm doing well. This person here who beat me last week, I beat him this week. Or looking at my own time, many different ways of measuring and tracking positive progress. Collectively, I think that leads to high performance.
Sudarshan, what all planning or activities do you do around your cycling which helps you with your performance? Maybe you're not seeking help for it, but something that you follow. Maybe it's related to some lifestyle thing. So what do you do that aids your cycling performance?
The thing, I think following pro sports is one aspect, because you keep an eye on all the athletes, like the top athletes, how they are doing, and you always try to learn things from them. So it is not just limited to racecraft, racecraft is there, but it also, especially in cycling, the equipment is also very important, and more especially when it comes to time trials. So for example, if you are doing time trials, you look at all the best athletes, how they're positioning themselves on the bike, and how to fit yourself into the UCI rules. That is important. Sorry, I lost my thought, but what was the original question?
So cycling solo, what do you do around cycling? Whether it is, say, some food habits that you follow, maybe it's some sort of psychology practice that you follow, some motivators, pustak or something like that. Anything like that, you follow something around your cycling which you believe helps in your performance?
I believe I think following pro cycling is the main motivator for me. Yeah.
So let's draw a picture for you, Sudarshan. As Friday, Sunday la sakai you have a time trial race. So starting Friday evening pasna Sunday morning paranta, can you walk us through what all you will do in preparation for that Sunday morning race?
Yes. So if I have a race on Sunday, so maybe I am tapering already from the week, so I must be reducing my training volume and increasing the intensity so that I am ready for the race. So particularly, so Friday I won't be having long ride. On Saturday maybe I'll have short sessions with just openers, and so that I'm fresh and ready for the activity. And also then there is a part of studying the course, studying your opponents, and studying the wind conditions, and also the gradient. So how you want to pace the course. So that is important. And then food, maybe I think you should always have good food habits, but especially 2 days before the race, your food should be very clean. And like have high carb diet, which so that you have enough carbs for the race. Those are the main aspects I look at.
Jim, you have a race in 2 hours. Okay, what all are you doing 2 hours before a race? Can you walk us through that?
I'm driving at high speed normally. So. Thinking back to when I was racing every weekend, seriously, I think 2 hours before I would generally be either in a car or on a bike on the way to the event. There and aiming to arrive like with an hour to go, with the objective of being in a calm state of mind and not panicking. And you will frequently see people, and at I didn't notice this, I did the Pilates road race, and my wife was saying that somebody had arrived like as we were on the start line, and he's all like, oh God, where are the numbers, where do I go? And his mind is in 100 different places. So definitely try and arrive early, put your bike together first, check that the bike works when you're still in normal clothes. And the bike is the most important thing, because if anything goes wrong with that, then you're finished. Then after that, then you can go and sort out, okay, where do I sign on? Where do I get numbers? For me, I'm very particular about pinning on numbers. And that was something that I found it quite fun and amusing to watch, the way that people would take numbers. When I was first racing, it was kind of fashionable you'd fold over your number to make it the minimum size possible, and then with the safety pins it would be like stitches, and you might have about 10 pins around each number to get it as flat as you can. And things have changed now. You have tri-suits with pockets where you slide the number in, and it's not as much fun. But for me, the actual pinning number on would be some quiet time where you're just there doing this little activity, and everything's peaceful. You're not talking to anyone. You've got to concentrate on what you're doing. And those kind of little things, like building together to make into a little kind of ritual. And I would always want to do some riding before any sort of race, and so I would aim to be 15 minutes before I've actually got to be on the start line. I'd be either on a turbo warming up or riding them down the road, just something to turn the legs, make sure the bike is working, and to clear your head as well, so that you're not just sat there just thinking about the race. Actively doing something else.
In contrast, he's also mentioned earlier that races over here are quite social. People will be waiting hours and hours after the race. So in contrast, is there something different that you would be doing 2 to 3 hours prior to a race? And are you like Jim, who likes to spend time alone before a race? Or are you usually more comfortable with socializing with other people?
I think I'm more comfortable with myself, and yeah, that aspect of preparing your bike and pinning the numbers is very important, and also having the bike. So one point here, like it's good to have bike mechanic skill with you, because like if anything happens to bike, anything goes wrong, you should be able to sort that out yourself. Yeah, so I think it'll be pretty much the same.
Has any of you ever practiced a visualization routine? You know what visualization is? So you basically just, my understanding of visualization, basically, you walk yourself through the race, if you've studied the course profile, probably go through that. Have you practiced visualization in any form? Maybe you didn't know the term, but you've done something like that. Jim?
No, I think not in that form, but I most definitely would want to know the course very well. So as I was saying in my hill climb, these courses are all individual, so it is actually important to know where does it get steep, and you might need to go into the red for a particular length of time, or being able to say, well, once I get to that corner that's just up there, then I know it will only be 30 seconds more. So that kind of thing, but I was doing that just so that it wasn't a surprise when I got in the competition, rather than a conscious effort to kind of replay it in my mind.
Coming to you, Varadayini. So suppose an athlete like Sudarshan came to you, he has a race Sunday morning. What would you advise him? So he's never seen psychology services before, and he's coming for the first time. So would you recommend some strategies to him? Or there is some new studies come out which have proven that something helps better. Can you talk to us about that?
Well, firstly, I don't see an athlete just before the race. It's not the right time for a psychologist to come in, because they already have their thing. So I advise them to come after the race. Okay, but having said that, anyone who needs any kind of pre-race advice, it's always to do with the routine, because since everyone spoke about routine, everything has to do with the routine. You will have a particular way of going a night before, the early morning, 2 hours before, 1 hour before, and it's all to do with your mindset. Okay, so even eating, definitely, I won't speak about that, but the mindset is what, say suppose a night before, a lot of the athletes that I work with write certain things down, like it could be the goals, it could be some certain strategies, that helps them visualize better as well. So you write certain things related to what you're going to do when something goes wrong. So for example, Michael Phelps, he used to write down what the worst thing that can happen during the race. So he could always visualize the water entering his goggles, because that's the worst thing that he could expect when he dives. Alright, so he used to visualize that right before the race, so that he's prepared for it. So anything that will help in preparation of the race strategically, I suggest at least to write it down before visualizing, because that actually helps narrow down your thought process. There are a lot of things happening in your mind or a night before. It's good to note down. Early morning, visualize it and then go on to the race. So it's, of course, every athlete will have their way of routine, but there are a few things that visualization, diary writing, and maybe some breathing exercise that can help again narrow down or like even calm down your nerves. So yeah, definitely these three things. Yeah.
Can you walk us through a visualization perhaps that some of us can pick up some pointers from, and maybe we can utilize it in our practices in the future?
Sure, Shredri is up for it. It will be a very general visualization, because like I said, everyone will have specific routines. But let me walk you through a very general form of visualization which everyone can do, and then maybe specifically you can alter it later on whenever you want to. Sounds good? Yeah, okay. So for a visualization, I'll give you another background from a psychological perspective. Visualization is not just this, what we do right now. It's a process. Alright, so usually when I work with athletes, we have a series of 5-6 sessions on different forms and different ways in which they visualize and maybe make it a part of their routine. So it takes time for visualization to actually come out and get in the form of your rehearsals. Okay, so this is an example. If you possibly do this, maybe over the period of next 5 to 6 weeks every day, then it will come out in the form of your rehearsals and application. Alright, so that's just a caution from my end. Alright, so everyone's ready? Yes. So very basic, I want you to just close your eyes firstly. Sit straight, positions, posture to be straight, nothing on you. If you have bags, just keep it aside. The posture should usually be like, where your head is and your spine is aligned. So you're not putting a lot of pressure on yourself. So close your eyes. Try and take a few deep breaths so that you are in this moment. You're centering yourself to whatever I'm saying. Alright, so just inhale and slowly exhale through your mouth or through your nose, whatever you're comfortable with. Try to make the exhalation a bit more than the inhalation. And as you're doing this, just scan your whole body, everything that you associate cycling with, the prominent muscles, right from your calves to your thighs to your buttocks. Just scan your body once, and if you feel any tension around, just wriggle it off. Again, focus on your breathing before we start the actual visualization, so that you are focused on yourself. Your focus is narrow. And today's visualization, we will try and recall one of your previous races which you felt was really good, an ideal race. So think back to a workout or a race or a practice session that you had, wherein you felt that yes, this was a very good race, it was an ideal race that I had. And not only because of the outcome, but because of the process that you were following, because it met everything that you had planned for. So not necessarily that you won the race, but you knew you gave your best performance. So start to think from your perspective, like from your eyes, how the day started, how did the race start, or even before the race, what were you wearing? Think of how the weather was, who was around you just before the race, what exactly, who you were talking to, possibly. Think about all these scenarios. So you are setting the scenario right. Even if you could even go a bit in depth, think about what you ate right before the race. How did it taste like? What was the smell like? And at the same time, also think about how strong you were feeling. Your muscles, your body posture, everything related to what you are feeling confident with. You are feeling that yes, this is going to go well. This is going to go good. You are feeling more confident about it at that time. And as you're visualizing this, slowly and steadily, as you're progressing ahead in time, think about the lead up to your warm up, where you're starting to warm up. How would that ideal warm up be? Think about that day, or even you could build that scenario in your mind right now. What's the ideal warm up? How would you progress into each and every exercise and ritual or the routine as you build up to the race? You're feeling pumped up already. You can think about that. Just feeling. And the initial announcements are being made. So now it's time to go and get ready and take your positions. You're feeling a bit nervous. The heart rate is a bit up, but you smile. You feel that yes, your adrenaline is in the right space. You're feeling confident. Self-belief is high. And nothing around you or externally is bothering you or your preparation. You're that confident. Okay, now we are at the start, the beginning of the race. Just visualize yourself being calm, taking a deep breath, feeling positive, feeling confident. And then you hear the cue, and then you go. Okay, just start building up in the first 25% of your race. Visualize yourself with that same confidence that you started the race, with all your preparation, all your strategies going the right way. Your mind is supporting you, your goal. And as you're pushing ahead, possibly hitting somewhere at the midway mark, you might feel a bit of that kicking back, but then you kick yourself ahead because you're believing in yourself, and that is actually leading to the flow. Almost 75% done, the last 25% you're again feeling that low, but you're pushing yourself by focusing on that goal, on that belief that you have. You have to go the distance, push the limits. And yes, just think of that time where you finished that race on the high, that race that you recalled, and give your best. And at that zeal, with that thing in your mind, you're completing that race. And as you're ending the race, you also, after completing the race, just refocus on your breathing. Focus on the emotions. Maybe it's a veil of emotions, a lot of things happening in your mind, but just focus on the positive ones. And whatever the self-talk that you're having in your head, just try to tell yourself, right now I'm trying to think, or I'm trying to choose to think better and well for myself. So that you feel proud of yourself, feel proud of your current achievement. And as we are ending this short visualization, again I want you to refocus on your breathing. Whenever you feel like, just take 2 or 3 deep breaths and slowly open your eyes.
Thank you so much. Is everybody with us now? Okay, thank you so much for that. Really charmed like them after doing it.
Welcome.
I really like that. I can definitely pick up some pointers from this to help visualize better in some future race. This brings us to the very end of our discussion, which is a Q&A session. If anybody has any questions for our panelists, or if anybody wants to add any point to whatever has been spoken up till now, so go ahead, pass the mic around. Yes, tell.
So it's a very straight question. Why don't we see a lot of Indians not riding in UCI World Tours? That's my question.
Yeah, because we are not riding enough. So you say right, so you see any of the World Tour riders, they are doing on average 35,000 kilometers per year. How much we are doing? Like even if you take Navin John, like he's probably doing the highest, but he's still at 25,000 somewhere around. So we are not just putting that much effort. So once we start putting that much effort, we'll be there.
And anything rather than that as well, like a part of training.
So also on the flip side, we do see people on track that are coming. So we who are training specifically for track. So we have SRSO and also at Asians like Harshvi and Vishwajit, they are doing pretty well. So it's a thing like since there are a lot of places in Olympic for track. Also the government comes into play when they are putting the effort so that the track team is good. So the efforts are put in there, and so athletes are doing better on track especially.
Can the weather be a part of that? Like getting comfortable with that weather or terrain? Yeah.
I can't answer that. Maybe I think Jim can answer that.
Yeah, I don't know so much about the weather. The thing that what I find difficult here is figuring out where are the races, who's organising them, and when are the races. So maybe I have a luxury, and Europeans have a luxury because our countries are small and densely populated, so you never have to go very far to find a race. But in the UK, there's 2 organisations. So British Cycling do road racing. They have a website. They used to have a book, but now they have a website. Every single race is in there. You can see it from January the 1st, you see the whole year. Likewise, a different organisation organises time trials, and they also have a calendar. And the other thing that I see that's very strong in Europe is a category system for road racers. So right from kids categories to, in the UK you start at category 4, and then depending on your results you score points, and then you get up to 3, 2, 1 and elite. You could only enter certain races if, some races will be deliberately for category 3 and 4, so you'd be racing against people of a similar ability. You'd know that before you entered. You couldn't get elite people entering it and then taking away all the prizes. So it kept the races very competitive. But like I say, just the very fact that you know where the races are, it means that you can plan these things, and you can plan to have very frequent racing. So I was used to a position where I raced every single weekend from early February till late October. I don't know, I get the feeling you'd struggle to do that in India. It's such a long stretch racing every week.
Maybe let's keep the questions to today's topics.
My question is for Sudarshan. So, in country like us, especially where professional coaching is very scarce, or athletes are not aware of structured training, not more all of them. In this scenario, how do we self-coach, self-motivate, and be consistent with our training?
Self-coach, I think that then, so basically in cycling, so I would recommend book, the Cycling Training Bible. So it covers all the basic of training, so all the zones. So it is a very good, even if you are not going to be a coach, good for any athlete who is training as cycling. And also I think it's by Dr. Andrew Coleman. So we have been like pioneer with all the zone training. So he has written that book. So you can follow that and you can actually plan your training accordingly, because that covers all the basics that you would need. So I believe even if you have a coach, you should understand what actually you are doing. You should question your coach, maybe if this thing is correct for you, especially before a race. Certain things work for you, certain things does not work. And if you have knowledge, you can figure that out. And having so that the Cycling Training Bible is probably one of the greatest source to follow that.
And a follow-up question to that, you spoke about professional athletes or even doing 25,000 kilometers a year or more than that. So how much detrimental is doing 10,000 kilometers of structured training versus doing 35,000 of unstructured or random riding?
So structured training does help. Like if you're doing low volume, then it helps. But we have always talk about polarized training. But the thing is, so polarized training is the ratio like 20-80. This is Dr. Stephen Sealer's view. So he actually came up with the polarized training model. But the research is mostly on the pro-peloton. And if you see, so they ride 4 to 6 hours each day. Naturally, they are going to having just 20%, which they are doing very hard. As per research, there are opposite views. So some say obviously the plan training works if you are doing very if you have very short time and you are not going to put in very mileage, then of course you should be training with a proper plan. But there's no escape to having mileage. So like you can't just really be at that level with less than mileage.
Yeah, especially for athletes who have day jobs and family, like masters category athletes.
Of course, yeah. So for them, having a structured plan is the best approach to go, because they have limited resources, we can say, limited time to spend and limited. They can't really be doing 25 kilometers per hour per year. 25,000.
Yeah, hi. My question is, how much does the equipment play the role in your performance versus the training? So, how much should you invest in the equipment for like a recreational cyclist?
Yeah. When it comes to equipment, like equipment is certainly important, but we usually have limited budget. So you need to understand like what part affects the most. So for example, if you are a time trial, if you are doing a time trial, the bike is not the most important thing, or the aerodynamics of the bike. It's your position that matters the most on your bike. So first you have to do that. Then it comes to wheels. So wheels are probably the most important thing that you that is more important for speed, and the tires. So you have to like research and invest smartly. So that you use your resources like to the full extent.
So if I could answer that one, I would say that even for recreational cyclists, that you're getting a bike that you've got a good, comfortable position on is the most important thing, and a bike that's reliable. As long as it's reliable and you know that you can set out, you'll do your ride, you'll return home without needing to be collected by someone, then you can plan what you're going to do. Something else that I think, I see relatively few people here use clipless pedals or even toe clips. A lot of people just have flat pedals and training shoes. You can get a lot more, a lot of benefit in your pedaling style if you're able to pull up on the pedals as well. And for me, I think that's worth much more than some very expensive upgrades on gears and drivetrain and those kind of things.
My question to the Varadayini, as you have mentioned that there is a definitely scope for the improvement. Even we won the match, there could be better to perform. How we could better perform, but same time, what about the sense of accomplishment for that movement? What we have accomplished, right? So.
Sorry, I did not get your question. So it's more to do with.
Yeah. So again, upon match जिंकलोय, so there is a definitely scope for improvement.
बरोबर.
But same time, what about the accomplishment?
Okay.
Sense of accomplishment that.
Oh, definitely.
How we can, yeah.
It is very important to have that as well, 100%. आणि मी म्हणजे मला असं वाटतं की बऱ्याच लोकांना ते नाही होत कारण it becomes more of a perfectionism syndrome की नाही हे this is not enough, I need to do more. So people are not very happy with what they have already achieved. Okay, so it's definitely very important to celebrate your victories or even whatever progress that you have made. Okay, असं नाही की you shouldn't do that. So even I feel even if you have not won anything but you feel your progress from the last time, it's very important to self-reinforce that yes, this is something what I've done over the period and it's very important to do that, 100%. Yeah.
मला सुदर्शनसाठी एक प्रश्न होता की जर लॉंग डिस्टन्स रेस असतील 7 ते 8 आवर्ससाठी तर त्यासाठी डाएट प्लॅनिंग कसं केलं जातं बिफोर द रेस, ड्युरिंग द रेस आणि आफ्टर द रेस, तर काय असणार
काय प्लॅनिंग?
डाएट सॉलिड डाएट, लिक्विड डाएट, कॉम्बिनेशन काय, कसं परफॉर्मन्सवरती कसा इफेक्ट होतो, काय असतं?
I can't really comment on the ultra distance side of things because more than 6 hours I don't really have experience of those races, but I can definitely comment on maybe road races which are around 160 or 200 kilometers. So first thing to understand is how much calorie expenditure you are going to do. So that is very important. So for example, for an hour, depending on your effort, you are maybe going to need 600 calories, and during the race, then you should be able to replenish that. So the main thing is carbohydrates or the sugars. So you need to be taking sugars for that, and sugar is the best form is liquid form, and also solid form works when the races are longer, but in the short and intensive races you need to have liquid sugars. Now there is again a limiting factor of your gut is only able to absorb certain amount of sugar. I think it's around 100 grams of sugar per hour. I think I might be wrong on this, but there's a certain limit on how much of calories how much of sugar your body is able to absorb. But there are certain different types of sugar. So there is sucrose and there is maltodextrin. So your body can absorb from different sources. Then, so you need to make sure that both sugars are included so that you can absorb maximum. And the important point is, so this mostly people do wrong is not eat enough. So in the race, just have as much sugar as you can, because you will be using that. So instead of underfueling, you should always be you should always be worrying about underfueling. So you should be always stop on fueling yourself enough.
आपण न्यूट्रिशन आणि कोचिंगचे आत्ता प्रश्न नको विचारायला आता, बिकॉज दिस इज आउटसाइड द स्कोप ऑफ वॉट वी आर टॉकिंग ओव्हर हिअर. ओके, आपण लेट्स कीप एव्हरीथिंग टू जे काय आपण बोललोय आता.
सुदर्शनला एक डाऊट होता, मागे त्या रेसमध्ये तो पडला होता समुद्रामध्ये तरी ते तो जिंकला होता, त्याचा माइंडसेट कसा होता त्या?
So that race actually I think that was adrenaline, and looking back, I think that might even be maybe a stupid decision, because if fortunately nothing happened, nothing was broken, but if I had concussion, I may have crashed again. So that was just on the adrenaline, so it was like I just have 1 or 2 kilometers and I just want to finish. So maybe it's just the grit and adrenaline that made me finish. But it could also be a stupid decision in another case.
I have a question about visualization. So when you do it with a professional athlete, how much details do you get into? Because the actual race is obviously going to be different. So does it create any kind of issues, and how do you maintain a balance between how much detail you get into and how do you face the actual race?
So like I said earlier, the process of visualization is very detailed, and we have a lot of sessions before we get into what we did today. Today was more of like a pre-race scenario, or recalling a very good race. It comes a little later. Initially, in the initial sessions, I just train them to be very vivid in nature, as in the details of say the setup, the details of the race, like how I just said, what you're wearing. It's very important to capture all these things in the initial sessions, and then get into the situational visualization, which is related to the situations. Now this is very specific to the athlete, as you said. Sometimes it's a guided form of visualization like what we did today. Sometimes it's just asking them to write down the situation and visualize it themselves. So it depends on the athlete, how trained they are. But then I do not start with a very situational visualization when I train the athlete. It's a lot of other things that come in the bag, which also depends on your 5 senses. So it's not just what you visualize by your eye, like what you see, but what you smell, what you hear, what you also feel, your muscles, how your muscles are feeling, how your bones are feeling, and all those aspects. So that takes some time to get trained and used to, and then we get into situational form of visualization.
So I have 2 questions, one for both the champions. Post a defeat, or if you have not performed that great in the race as much as you would have liked, how much time do you guys need to get back in terms of your mindset, back on track let's move forward? How much time do you guys usually need? That's one question. The second question is for you about mind games. So opposition will always have mind games. So how do you train people to not get affected as much with those mind games that oppositions may have? Thank you.
So I'd say the one about bouncing back, I would straight away be right onto the next thing. What's my next training session? What's my next objective? Because I think it's not helpful to dwell on negative things. So I would tend to focus on the things that I've done right, the things. What positive signs can I take from a bad performance that I can then put them to good use in the future? Is how I prefer to think of it.
I can also say the same, just work towards the next race directly. And then there are things to learn. Only thing is, if it was your A race, if it is national championships, then maybe you can just take a little break, a little breather, and then start again.
Talking about opponents' mind games, I think I would put it in this way, cycling as a sport is, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a very non-invasive sport. You can't, while when you're racing, I'm sure there are people are not talking to you, right? Or it happens.
Yeah, no, that happens a lot, and especially at national races, that happens a lot.
Okay, so okay, fine. So yes, so coming to this equivalent to sledging in cricket, yeah, something similar. There's a very famous, I won't say famous, but then Rahul Dravid had this whole thing of when he put his helmet on, everything outside the helmet or outside this part was blurred for him. So anyone spoke from the side, from the slips, anyone speaking or throwing trash from the audience, it didn't bother him. It takes some time to get adapted to this, definitely, but there has to be a routine. There has to be certain ways in which you actually cut out the noise, as we say. This is the noise, and it could be your opponents who are talking to you. It could be sometimes the opponents' coaches also trash talk at times. Okay, but there has to be a ritual or a routine which is followed, usually accompanied with a lot of self-talk. So we definitely train athletes with this, which is cutting down the noise and focusing on your self-talk, which is in your control. Basically, things which are in your control. It takes a lot of time for athletes to get used to it, but yes, it's very important, especially in today's world, wherein social media is so quick. Even trash talking outside the tournaments or even the competition scenario, it's happening. So even social media feedback is so strong that people get affected by it. But yes, there are ways in which you train with it. Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot everyone for joining us. We'll probably just stop over here, and we've got some, statement of appreciation for all our panel members. So I'll just hand them over that.
So that's for all our panel members. So don't thank a lot for and we've got two more, and I'd like to call Yash on stage, please. So Yash basically is from Ozone Ventures, who sponsored the event today. And because of Ozone Ventures, and we've got the venue partner, we just would like to thank them as well. So thanks a lot. I'd like to call Anay as well. Anay? So Anay मुळे आपल्याला इथे एवढी वर्ष And if anyone has any questions related to this topic, please let me know. Just send me a text, shoot me an email. I'll forward it to all our panel members. And मग त्याच्यावरनं आपण answers घेऊयात, and I'll obviously forward that to you as well.
I would like to tell. So in this cycling community, I think there is like a bit of a restraint for talking. I think so there is a conception so we usually ride in a baseline, so we go fast. But it's a misconception that we don't want anybody else to ride with us. It's actually the opposite. We want more riders to join us. We want more riders to come and train with us. And usually it's like people are afraid to talk or even ask. So don't afraid to ask. You just ask. Go out and ask. So what you as we want to grow into cycling, it's the more the better. So we want to grow together. So we can't be just in silos and grow. Yes, we might go somewhere in silo, but when it's a sense of community, when we are pushing each other, it's much better and much easier as well. So even just for baseline, if there are two guys and if there is a community of 19 riders, it will become much easier to ride. So just we should ride together, speak more, and just yeah, put whatever you have. Just do not refrain.